You're kind of busy, you're running a multi-billion-dollar company. Like, what made you want to make time for this?
I never wanted to be one of those CEOs that's kind of an ivory tower, just looking at data and spreadsheets all day. When you first build a company, you make something usually for yourself. People aren't just numbers, they're people. And that means that you need to be emotionally connected to what you're doing. Understand when hosts are complaining about something or your customers complaining, what do they mean? So that's like the main reason I did it. But then there was another reason I wasn't expecting, which was it's fun.
It was crazy to think you were going to rent your house to a stranger or that you were going to stay in some stranger's house. And now it's just what we do.
Yeah.
Does the level of human openness to that idea still surprise you?
I think I'm less a visionary than an expeditionary in the sense that I didn't have a vision. I discovered something. One weekend I couldn't pay rent. I decided to let people in my house, only to make money for the most part. I thought it'd be fun. And I ended up becoming friends with these people. And it made me realize that like these homes are these private spaces that you never let anyone in, but you understand why. There's no trust. And we thought, well, if we could solve a system of trust and make them not feel like strangers, this would be an idea that spread around the world. I think we have trouble imagining sociological change is sometimes harder than technological changes. We can all imagine things getting bigger, faster, but it's hard to imagine us changing behavior.
But Airbnb has actually been a big part of like maybe a major sociological change.
Probably. I mean, it's been used 1.4 billion times. And if you had told me when we first started that 1.4 billion people from 220 countries and regions would live together, that on a typical night, we'd have nearly the population of Los Angeles staying together. People from the Middle East and Texas, like cultures you wouldn't necessarily think mixing together. I think we all would have said you were crazy. It's like most tech companies have to understand laws of physics. We call these first principles. And we also have to know a different law, which is a law of human nature. Like, who are we at a very basic level? And if you can start to understand that, then you can start to design for people.
You know, obviously the pandemic hits, travel comes to a screeching halt, the majority of your revenue almost vanishes. Also, nobody wants to see other people.
Right.
In that moment, did it feel like you were standing on the edge of a cliff?
I thought we had made it before the pandemic. You know, we had a business that was doing like, let's call it $35 billion in sales. That's more than Starbucks. That's almost like the size of Nike. If you had told me in like the 1980s growing up, we'd have a business that big, I'd be like, you're totally crazy. I thought we're making work an IPO. To then lose 80% of it in 8 weeks. I mean, you remember there were articles like, is this the end of Airbnb? Will Airbnb exist? I gotta tell you, like that changed my life. And it changed my life and the company for the better.
How?
You ever hear people say like they had a near-death experience and they had this moment of clarity? Well, thankfully I've never had that, but I felt like I got that clarity from a business perspective.
How did you change as a person?
We'll see. My hair is a little grayer, but I think I really grew up during the pandemic. I think I felt my responsibility more. Employees were worried about their jobs. Investors were worried about their investment. Guests were worried about if they can get their money back when they're traveling. And they were all reaching out to me at the same time, and not in a low-key, composed way. And I remember my board member, Ken Chenault, who was the CEO of Amex, he was CEO during 9/11 in the financial crisis, 2008. And he basically said, I've been through 2 of the biggest crises of my lifetime, and this is 10 times bigger than either of them. He said, this is your defining moment as a CEO. And I think I had lessons that have now been seared in my brain, and I'm never gonna forget them.
What are the lessons?
So the first thing I learned is who people really are. The good news is that the vast majority of people turned out to be great people. I learned to focus the entire company and point them, every single person, to one direction. And I learned to stop apologizing about how I want to run the company. Because you hire people and they come from Google, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, and they bring their way with them. And what I realized I was doing was trying to find some midpoint between how I wanted to run the company and how they wanted to run the company, which actually made everyone miserable. It's like, I had to go into wartime mode. And the crazy thing was, is as I took more command, more control, became more decisive, more bossy, so to speak, I think people were happier because they had clarity and direction.
And then the tide turned, or maybe it's like the Titanic didn't hit the iceberg. You go public, Airbnb goes public.
Yes.
The end of 2020. I'm interviewing you live. You can't even speak, like you're completely tongue-tied. I actually want you to watch it. It's such a moment. We just got indication on your opening price. Shares indicated to open right now at $139 a share, which is more than double what you priced at. I mean, are you at all concerned about froth? What do you think about that number and the potential that you're leaving billions of dollars on the table.
That's the first time I've heard that number. When we, in April, we raised money, and it was a debt financing. Oh my God. That price would have priced us around $30. So I don't know what else to say. Wow. I haven't watched that in a long time. Wow. It actually makes me a little emotional.
What's going through your head in that moment?
I think that moment, it was like my hard drive crashed. And I think it's that, like, the pandemic happens. We have this emergency board meeting. All of a sudden I realized, like, this is going to be a 24-hour thing. And I probably never stopped at any point to think about anything. You took a whole year and you made it like a 15-second trailer, and I was like, oh my God. And maybe at that moment, it all hit me. This is just so crazy.
Your interview went viral.
It did.
People could see it hit you.
Yeah. My eyebrows went to the top of my head. And I didn't know they went that high. That was one of the most surprising moments of my life. I'm not usually speechless. I mean, 2020 was an intense and emotional year, and that was the capstone.
Did you ever think about where Airbnb would be if the pandemic didn't happen?
That's the crazy thing. Like, your culture is often forged in your darkest moments. I think people think of culture as like, the perks, yoga, free food, snacks. No, culture are the shared behaviors that you all have based on lessons you've learned together. And the lessons you remember most are during the moments of trials and tribulations, the things that forge you. We basically made like 5 years of progress in like 6 months. And you can't ask for an occasion like that. You can only hope that if it happens, you will rise.
We've seen a lot of founder CEOs step back, whether it's Amazon, Google, Twitter, Pinterest, Slack. You're still here.
I think when I was starting out, I think I was afraid to run a giant company. But the thing that's most surprised me is I have more excitement today than I did when I was in Y Combinator. The job today as a public company CEO is more fun than the job as a private company CEO.
I feel like I often hear the opposite.
You often do, because by the time you run a public company, you're trying to appease shareholders, you're trying to appease employees, you're negotiating. I stopped obsessing over making money, and we ended up generating $3.5 billion in free cash flow. There's a paradox there. I like to tell entrepreneurs, think of the growth of your company. You have to grow faster than that. And if you don't grow fast in your company, then your company is going to be pulling you, and then you're going to eventually be holding it back.
Does it ever feel like this immense responsibility that you have to stay, or does it feel like a burden?
I only want to keep doing this if I'm the best person to do this. And the interesting thing is, the longer I do it, the more I probably become the best person, because I have both the history of the founder, being a founder that you can never replace. And my biggest weakness was probably I was young and I didn't have a lot of experience, but now I have that too. I think that our day is just getting started. We're like phase 1, have an idea, bring it to market, get product market fit. Phase 2, hypergrowth. Phase 3, become a public company and like generate profit and be a real company. Phase 4, reinvent yourself. Ostensibly, I'm an entrepreneur and a business person, but I think of myself as kind of designing and making. And the reason I have more fun now is because now it's more creative than it used to be.
Are you an artist designer first and CEO second? Is that what you would say?
I think you're always what you were growing up. There's something about what you were growing up that's always in your heart. And probably I approach problems more like a designer than a CEO, although I'd probably set the intersection.
And how does that change the company? How is that mentality infused into the company?
I have books like this Frank Lloyd Wright book here, right? My favorite architect, or Charles and Ray Eames, two of the great industrial designers of the 20th century. Charles Eames said, the details aren't the details, they make the product. And I am absolutely involved in the details. I think design is not just how something looks, it's how it fundamentally works. It's about simplifying something. And people think simplifying is removing things, and it's not. Simplifying is understanding something so deeply that you can get to the essence of something. Even how we became profitable. We kind of designed the P&L. Most people cut. We didn't cut, we designed. Because cutting, you're just lopping things off. But designing says, well, instead of cutting all these expenses, what if we just thought about the whole operation differently? To have fewer parts, fewer components. And it really takes creativity to do that.
What's a day in the life of Brian Chesky outside the office?
I like to learn, I like to draw, I like to hang out with people I care about, and I like to travel. I guess those are the things I do.
I love your art.
Yeah, so this is my life before tech.
Did you do these?
Yeah, so I did this in freshman year at RISD. This is like 1,000 triangles glued together to turn into a self-portrait.
I didn't realize you were such an artist. I mean, I knew you were a designer, but
I feel probably, more an artist now. I started as an artist, became a designer, then I guess an entrepreneur in that order.
Is this another one of yours?
Yeah, so this was like my big high school senior project. This is me basically hanging off a ledge of the Grand Canyon.
There's a lot going on there.
Probably highly symbolic to how I felt senior year of high school.
Which was?
Like, oh my God, like my life is changing so much. I was planning to go to art school. I thought I'd be an artist. At that point, I didn't even think I'd be a designer. Designer was like a leap.
Yeah.
And I had to go the whole journey of realizing, like, I love drawing. And then I get to campus and I realized I was born like 100 years too late for what I wanted to do. Freshman year RISD, you have to pick a major. And the department head of industrial design came to pitch. And they said, industrial design is design of everything from a toothbrush to a spaceship and every single thing in between. And I thought to myself, that's what I'm gonna do in my life.
So Airbnb was the thing in between.
I guess we're between the toothbrush and the spaceship.
Over the years, you've really emphasized, the values of Airbnb, whether it's community or connectedness. Yeah. What does it take to make something that people really love?
When I joined Y Combinator, the first day, they give you a t-shirt. It's a great t-shirt. And it says, make something people want. And if you get an exit, they send you a black t-shirt. And it says, I made something people want. And that was something that always stuck with me. And I think the way you make something that people want is you have to care about people. And you have to understand people. We did this thing 10 years ago. I named it Snow White after the movie Snow White. Snow White was basically the advent of the storyboard. Walt Disney was one of my heroes. This film was so long, he had to storyboard it. And I said, why don't more businesses do that? Why don't businesses understand who their customer is, storyboard the experience, and then try to put themselves in the shoes of that person, and just every single opportunity is a detail that you can perfect.
Talk about being in the details.
Oh yeah.
I mean, is your team like, should we invite Brian or not?
If they had the choice, but that you're presuming they have a choice. I don't intend to be in the details of everything forever. It's like I'm a coach and I'm like trying to teach a level of detail and excellence. I think there's this like idea that I think is a bit of a myth that great leaders hire great people and empower them to do great work. And that sounds great, but they're missing something. And what they're missing is you got to be in the details of the people. It's not micromanaging, it's auditing and understanding what they're doing.
Tech is going through a tumultuous time.
Oh yeah.
Tens of thousands of people getting laid off in waves. How do you think about how Amazon and Meta and other companies are handling these layoffs?
I always felt like when I would read some of these corporate communications that like they weren't written by people. They seemed to be like written by committees. And it felt like maybe a bunch of lawyers or HR people had sanded the edges off the person to the point where the person speaking wouldn't actually talk like that. Any communication, I write. A lot of CEOs don't write anything that they have their name on. The second thing is, I think when you do a layoff, if you're gonna cut, you need to cut once, and therefore you better cut deep enough. Try to avoid doing multiple layoffs. I think multiple layoffs can be very difficult from a cultural standpoint because if there's more than one, then people can't trust they'll ever end. And the company is like in a paralyzed standstill if that happens.
You started Airbnb at the depths of the financial crisis, 2009.
Yeah.
What's your advice to entrepreneurs now?
I mean, I honestly think...
Hi, Sophie.
Sophie.
She's like, this is going on a really long time. I get it. We've been talking a while. Hello. I think she likes me. All right. What's your advice? Look, it's like banks are collapsing. Like, what's your advice to entrepreneurs right now?
I think this is a great time to start a company. If you look at the history of companies like Apple and Microsoft, I think we're starting a down economy. Google emerged during the dot-com crisis. We started during the Great Recession. I like to tell people the best time to start a company is the moment you're ready. If your idea is really good and you can make it in a tough economy, you can definitely make it in a good economy. And I think the discipline of being in a really difficult environment will teach you something.
So what do you want the next phase of Airbnb to be? Let's say 5 years.
I feel like at this point, we've all these capabilities. It would be such a shame not to use that to solve a very important problem. And the problem that I'm most concerned about, that I think we can help, is that I think this is the loneliest time in human history. If people lived this isolated alone thousands of years ago before modern technology, we would be dead, right? There's a reason loneliness hurts. It's because
some people would say like tech is connecting us all and making us less lonely.
Loneliness has been rising in the United States since the 1970s, as far as I can tell, so it's definitely not all tech. But I do think that we need to have a reality check. The average American spends 10 more hours alone every week than 10 years ago. We're sleeping less, exercising less, spending less time with friends and family. You know, your Instagram followers aren't coming to your funeral. No one changed someone else's mind, YouTube comment section. So we need to marry the best of the digital technology with the best of the physical world. I think the next chapter of Airbnb, I want to be less about housing, less about travel, but new things we're going to do are going to be a lot more about bringing people together.